Hi everyone, welcome to the Leadership Adventure podcast and YouTube channels. I'm Marv McCarthy, your host. Hope your new year is off to a great start. Now, as a reminder, Leadership Adventure publishes 2 episodes per week, one on Tuesdays and one on Thursdays. Tuesday is what we call the blog, which is designed for all leaders, and Thursday is what we call the Devo, which is designed for leaders of faith. So today is Tuesday, January 9th, which means it's time for this week's blog. Today's episode is titled Deep Impact. Let's jump in. The late 1990s saw a disaster film trend. 2 of these movies were about rogue comets striking the Earth. The movies, which you might remember, were both released in 1998, and they were called Deep Impact and Armageddon. Both were commercially successful. Armageddon grossed about $553 million worldwide, and Deep Impact grossed about $349 million. So in either case, not a bad savings account balance. All leaders have impact. My awareness of its criticality has increased significantly over the last few years. In fact, since I began writing in May 2022, I've referenced the topic of impact 38 different times in my posts. Now, as a definition, impact refers to the effect or the influence that a leader has on their team, organization, and even their broader community. And it encompasses both the tangible and intangible outcomes resulting from a leader's actions, decisions, attitudes, and behaviors. So today we are going to use the comet metaphor to explore 5 parallels with leadership impact. Number 1, impact is unavoidable. If you are a leader, you have impact, period. You can't change it. Even if you don't wish to have impact, you still do. Every action, decision, or lack thereof has a consequence. Everything you do, everything you say, everything you write is on display somewhere to someone, as well as your attitude and demeanor. People are watching you as a leader and analyzing your actions. And leaders like comets leave a trail behind them. Impactful leaders are always mindful of their actions and the lasting effects that they leave behind. So parallel number 2 is unintended consequences. The initial impact of the comets in the movies theoretically wasn't the problem. After all, when the comets hit, the Earth didn't just split right in half. The devastation came afterwards from the secondary effects. So just as all leaders have impact, all impact has secondary effects. These effects can be positive, contributing to the growth and development of individuals and the organization, or they can be negative or unintended, causing disruptions and impairments to performance. Impactful leaders consider the downstream consequences of the actions that they take today. Now, at first glance, numbers 1 and number 2 may appear similar. But the difference is this. Number 1, which is the comet trail, is more about the legacy that you leave behind, or I would call it the echo of your significance. Number 2, which is the consequences, is more about the effects during your lifetime. So a lifetime of negative unintended consequences will absolutely and cumulatively affect the trail or the legacy that you leave behind. Number 3, the third parallel is crisis. So I personally can't imagine a much worse scenario than a comet about to collide with the Earth. And thankfully, most of us as leaders don't have to deal with a crisis of this magnitude. But crisis is a normal part of our leadership lives. So when your team encounters a crisis or any other problem, really, one of 2 things will happen. They're either going to rally together to create a positive outcome, or, just because it's human nature, they will start finger pointing and pulling apart. You control this outcome. You can't avoid that either. Impactful leaders do whatever it takes to unify the team. Not only does this produce a positive result, but it also strengthens you and your team for the future. Parallel number 4 is resilience. The need for resilience is actually one of the top 3 needs expressed by leaders post-pandemic. Leaders of impact or impactful leaders grow stronger through setbacks and proactively anticipate and prepare for future challenges. This is the essence of resilience. It's really a reservoir of capacity and tenacity. And finally, parallel number 5 is integrity. Like a comet, your impact has a core, and the core is integrity. It has to be. Consistent, high integrity leadership will, hands down, I believe, leave the brightest and the longest trail or legacy behind. Now, the art of impactful leadership is a dynamic blend, I would say, of vision, precision, balance, and of course, the core, which is integrity. As leaders, if we embrace these qualities, we will elevate our impact and guide our teams to new heights. Final point for today is that our maximum impact can only be achieved if we discover and live out our life purpose, or our individual highest and best. And we will talk more about that next week. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Tuesday.